I suspect we'll hear him on the air sooner rather than later, but a lot of people were fired up about this, wanted to hear more about it. So very excited to say hello once again to Jimmy Smith. He's joining us on the phone. Jimmy, are you there?
I am here, man. Appreciate you.
The very recognizable voice of one Jimmy Smith. It's great to have you on the program, Jimmy. So, okay, let's start. When did you find out that you were no longer going to be a part of Bellator's future plans?
Well, it was a process. I mean, a lot of people, don't understand. It had been a long time coming, and that I was informed, what was it, October, that they wouldn't pick up my contract for next year. They wanted a different contract. They wanted a new one. And we worked out some terms over the next few months, and it just didn't work. I mean, the changes they wanted to make, I didn't like. And so formally it ended, I think, the day after Christmas is when we let them know I wouldn't be back. And so it was a long process. It wasn't I got a phone call in the morning that I wasn't going to be around next year. Like I said, I was informed in October that they wouldn't pick up my contract, and they wanted a new one. And so it was a long time coming.
Was your contract set to expire, or were they trying to restructure the deal or something in the midst of a contract?
It was set to expire at the end of the year, but they had an option. They could have picked up in 2018, and they elected not to.
Okay.
So it was a combination of things. I had a 4-year deal with a 1-year option, and the 4-year deal was up at the end of 2017. And they could have just said, "Okay, we're going to keep you 2018." And they said, we don't want to do that. We want to change some things. And so I didn't like the changes, and so we spent a couple months working on it and just couldn't come to an agreement, and that was it. What
kind of changes are we talking about? Can you elaborate?
I can't elaborate that much. I just, the way I told Joe is, when they come to you for changes, they're not good.
Yeah.
So they came to me for changes, and so they didn't like the contract I already had. And if it wasn't going to come up to the standards I had set for 2018 previously, for the contract option I already had, to me, it wasn't worth doing. And they weren't willing to get to those standards to me. So that was it.
If we would have spoken this time last year, so you're about to embark on the last year before the option, did you foresee this? Was this on your did you think that, okay, they might come back with something I'm not happy, like this could be my last year? Or did you think, no, I've been here for, X amount of years. It's been great. I've been a big part of the company. I'm their guy. I'm their main guy. We'll figure something out. Like what were you seeing on the wall? Like, was the writing there, or did this kind of come at you a bit of a surprise?
I was one of the few that did. It was really strange. A lot of us were in the same boat in Bellator. Our contracts are up at the end of the year. You never know who's coming back and all these things. And I would always hear like, "Oh man, you're going to be fine. Of course they're going to, I have this problem, but Jimmy, you're going to be great." And I kept saying, you never know. You never know when you're dealing with a structure where it's they have X to work with and that's it. I'm not an exception to that rule. And so, every plan I had made for my future kind of started, obviously January 2019. And as the year was progressing, I started, I just started thinking, hey, maybe not. Maybe I better be ready for January 2018. So I had suspected, but you weren't sure. It was certainly something that I thought was a possibility. That's the best way to put it.
And so other people have left as well?
No, not necessarily, but a lot of us are in the same boat on the production side. In terms of, people in the truck, tape people, directors, they all a lot of them start negotiating, middle of the fall for the end of the year. And so a lot of people are talking about, privately about, how their deal is going. And like I said, just the feedback was all, of course you're going to be around. And I said, you know what? Nobody's immune to the realities of a promotion. Nobody's immune to it. Doesn't matter how long you've been around. Doesn't matter what you've done. There are certain realities. Everybody's under the same rules in a sense.
They offered you something though, right? I mean, like you had something to consider, right? Okay. Yeah. Was it like a complete slap in the face where it was like an easy call, or did you actually agonize over this?
No, it wasn't a slap in the face. Bellator really made a good faith effort to keep me. They really did everything they could. I truly believe that. It's never an easy call because of the people you've worked with and the people you've gotten to know and the relationships you've formed, and they're great guys over in Bellator. It wasn't easy, but I don't step back. I don't step down. I don't go, well, this is, if I felt it was time for a change and a move because of that, in a sense. It's like I said, if it doesn't come up to the standards of the option I already had, you know what? I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to take a jump. I'm going to, test out free agency. Free agency cuts both ways. And I decided to give it a shot rather than step back or take a contract that wasn't up to what I thought, or the contract I originally had, not even what I thought, but the contract I originally had. So I just wasn't going to do that.
Did they explain why they offered a step back? I mean, you're very popular, like I said, a mainstay. What was the rationale?
Here's what we got.
Okay.
Here's what, in a sense, it's not, you're dealing with, an entity in Bellator and Viacom. There are a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And, people always, it's so funny. People always in the mainstream media say like, oh, they got Viacom money. Viacom has billions of dollars. Viacom has this, and that. Viacom has a lot of properties.
Yeah.
Bellator is one show on one network. And the idea that the people running that go, yeah, but I really like Jimmy Smith. That's in MMA, and they have a lot more businesses than MMA. So the one thing about, you talk about Zuffa, all Zuffa does is make the UFC better. That's all they care about. That's all they wake up and think about. Viacom doesn't work that way. They have a lot of properties, a lot of things. A lot of times it's, look, we're giving you X to make the show, and that's it. So, a lot of times the emotional side of what I've done for MMA or what I've done for Bellator and this, hey, I'm one show on one network. So the intensity that an MMA fan would have, Viacom's a big, big corporation. So, you get caught up in that kind of structure. And as much as you would want to keep me or this and that, you have X to work with, and that's it. And I understand and know that's part of the business.
The last Bellator show of 2017 was on December 15th, the show in Newcastle. Did you know then that was going to be your last show?
I thought it might be. And that was tough.
What was that like?
Saying that. It was hard because you're in the middle of a negotiation, and I had a pretty good idea at this point how far things were going to go and what was going to work and what wasn't. But you can't say that. You can't. We're in the middle of an active negotiation, and I can't tell everybody, look, I might not be around past December 31st. So it was hard because, everyone's saying goodbye to you and going, hey, man, I'll see you January 20th. You're going,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I'll see you January 20th. It was tough because you're in the middle of a negotiation. So it still could have worked out. But I had a strong feeling it wouldn't, but I can't say that. So, it was tough. It was really hard. Yeah.
So it sounds like a lot of the people didn't know. I'm sure some people did. Was it awkward? Was it hard to do the job till the end? Was it strange at all? Because sometimes,
not
negotiations. No? Okay.
Not at all. Doing the actual job, I love. I mean, I love doing this. I think I have, the best job in the world. I'm thrilled to do it. Everybody I work with is great. Doing the job itself wasn't difficult. And once again, you got to remember, I have management. I have representation. My manager and he's doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm not sitting down with these people arguing and yelling and then, doing a show. That's why you have a manager. So I don't have to do that.
Right.
So I wasn't actively involved in negotiation. So I could sit across from the person doing the negotiation with my manager, and we're fine because I'm not calling the guy arguing. That's not what I do. So in terms of the actual work, everything was totally professional, totally great. I had a great time, which is one of the things that, made it hard to kind of keep that inside. It was tough.
Sometimes in these cases, like there's a famous one with Bill Simmons of ESPN. He found out via the media that they weren't going to pick up his contract, that he was done. I know that Bellator put out this release on, I think it was December 27th, if my memory serves me correct. Did you find out through the media, or did you know beforehand that they were going to do this and that, you guys were parting ways?
We let them know.
Oh, okay. So, you said, okay. So this wasn't a surprise.
Yeah. So people had a little reversed. We had done a negotiation, and the day after Christmas is when my manager said, look, that offer's not good enough. Jimmy's not going to be around. They went, okay, well, we're going to make a press release, give us a quote and all. So it was a very amicable. It was very, they called me and went, hey, we're really sorry. it didn't work out. And all this. I mean, I wasn't blindsided. They were totally professional. They were totally friendly. My boss called me the next day, and we talked about it. And it was in no way was I blindsided. It was an amicable split. It was tough, but they were great all the way around. So I wasn't blindsided, and all those guys have my utmost respect, 100%.
Okay, so no hard feelings.
None at all. I mean, they were great about it. They would come back to me and it's like, look, we're not going to release this press release if you don't think it's worded well. They let me they sent it to me and my manager and go, if you have any problem with the wording, let us know. And I mean, they were great about it. So it wasn't it wasn't bitter at all. I mean, they're great guys.
The reaction when this news came out, a lot of people, I think, were upset, surprised. I know wish you well. It was very cool on your Twitter feed to see a lot of the fighters who said they'd miss you, because I mean, to have them, you're calling their fights. What I've always appreciated about you, and I think I told you this, you always kind of call it down the middle, even though there's a star that maybe they want to push. Like, you tell it like it is. I remember with Anastasia Yankova, you were very hard on her for continuing to miss weight, things of that nature. What was it like to start, once that came out, to see the flood of reaction tweets, things like that to your departure?
Bittersweet, I guess, is the best way to put it, because I mean, so many of those fighters are great. You get to know them. You spend a lot of time with them, and then, they miss you and you miss them. And it's tough. It's a break, it's like a breakup kind of. And, so the outpouring of support, man, I really appreciated it. And especially from the fans and the fighters, because the structure I was in Bellator, everyone above me, they're not necessarily fight people. They're TV people, or they're, the executives of Viacom, Spike. They don't know fighting like the fighters know fighting. They don't know fighters like the fans know fighting. So the fans and the fighters themselves are the ones that keep you honest, are the ones that when they go, man, I really appreciated that call. They know what you mean. My producers and everybody, they're great TV people, but they don't know the fight side of the business. But the fighters and the fans do. So hearing back from them was a huge deal for me. It was, like I said, bittersweet. I really appreciated it, but it was a tough couple of days.
Do you have a new home yet? A new TV home?
Not yet.
Not yet. But you emphasized yet. Yet,
not yet. Well, it wasn't. There were a lot of offers on the table once, because they let me become a free agent and start negotiating 4 months ago. I mean, October was, we're not going to renew your contract. So when they let me know, we're not going to renew your contract, you are free to talk to anybody you want. And so, okay. So, I called my manager and he goes, well, everybody's calling me back. It wasn't that hard. So yeah, I went through quite a bit of my manager earning his money and calling and talking to everybody. So I think I will have a new home very soon.
Okay. That was actually my next question. How soon is soon, and can you work right away, or is there like a non-compete?
Nothing at all like that. I can work immediately. There's no non-compete at all. So, okay. Yeah, hopefully, yes, you'll very, very soon.
Won't beat around the bush. I know there's interest from the UFC. I would be surprised if there wasn't interest on your part. In fact, you were on Joe Rogan's podcast last week, and he gave you, raving review and a great endorsement. Are you going to the UFC?
We will see. Things are in the works. That's all I can say.
Oh wow, this is exciting
on that one.
Okay. How soon do you think we'll find out? Like tomorrow, next week, next month? What do you think?
I would say within the week. That
wow.
would be my guess, within the week.
Wow, this is exciting. Now, when you spoke to your agent when this all came down, I'm sure you had a discussion with him. Like, okay, what do you want? Your goals? Where do you want to be? Is it fair to say that at the top of the list was the UFC?
I mean, in our space, basically, it's being a commentator is like being a fighter. It's in the United States, UFC, Bellator have a day job.
Yeah,
you can still fight.
Yeah,
but it can't be your only gig. If you're not in Bellator or the UFC, if you're fighting for another organization, you'll fight. Maybe you'll make some money, but you better have something else on the side. It's no different as a commentator, where it's Bellator, UFC, or a combination of things. Now, remember, I had done boxing for PBC when it was on Spike too. So a lot of boxing promotions saw my work and were very, very impressed. But it's UFC, Bellator, then it's mix and match. You know what I mean? Then it's okay. We need boxing and this and this and that, and then it'll add up to a nice salary and a good year. But in terms of a place to land in mixed martial arts, it's Bellator, UFC, or a non-exclusive 4 or 5 organization deal, because there just isn't enough work in anything other than the UFC or Bellator in terms of MMA. So that's the best way to put it. That was our mentality, was just like a fighter. If you're not in UFC, if you're not in Bellator, you've got to have 2 or 3 things in order to make it work.
Okay, so
strategy from the beginning, yeah.
You were Bellator's main color analyst. You were at all the shows, no matter where they were, 3 in a row, overseas, whatever the case may be. I'm assuming you didn't have another job, right? I mean, that took up all your time, correct?
All of my time, it took up everything, because, the what to watch pieces and here's what's coming up and this and that. That's all me. I mean, they would call me and go, we need you in a studio in LA tomorrow to do X, Y, and Z. Okay, got it. We need you to do this. Okay, got it. No problem. You're flying out to this show next week. Okay, got it. I was their guy. Anytime they want to do anything, I was there, and that was it. And so I'm used to that kind of structure of, whatever you need me for, you call me and you'll know I can do it. And so that was what I was for Bellator for, 9 years. It was anything they needed. They didn't have to worry about somebody being able to do it. That was me.
So here's my follow-up. As you know, let's just say you end up in the UFC. They have a pretty solid roster of color analysts. It starts with Joe Rogan, and then you have Cormier and Dominic Cruz and Dan Hardy and Paul Felder coming up, etc. I mean, unless there's something, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you're going to be at every show, I assume you won't do as many shows in 2018. Do you, even if you go to the UFC, do you need another job?
No, because the way I see it, I do a lot of stuff and they do a lot of programming. One of the things you look at when you look at the UFC is it's they do stand-up stuff on Fox. Welcome to this show about next week's fight. Welcome to this feature piece about this fighter. They do a lot of programming. When you sit there and if you search UFC on your TV, a ton of stuff comes up. They do a ton of stuff, and I have history and experience and background in all of that stuff. So it doesn't particularly worry me. It doesn't particularly concern me. They're doing a lot of 3-man booth stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
So, getting the airtime wouldn't really be a consideration I would have should I go there.
Just curious, hardcore fans will know that, many moons ago you fought. Did you ever have any contact with the UFC? Like if you end up in the UFC, would this be, your first time? Of course, you never joined forces with them, but pretty cool. What I'm getting at is, typically the UFC stays in-house. You look at all the broadcasters, all in-house guys. I love the fact that potentially someone could be coming out of house. I think it just gives more credibility to the broadcast. And I'm wondering if you had any conversations, is this your first time having a cup of coffee with them, or did you ever talk to them back in your fighting days, or maybe even broadcasting days in the past as well?
In my broadcasting days, Joe made allusion to it on his show. This is not the first time I've been kind of in between contracts with Bellator. Okay. Every time that happened, the UFC's been interested. So this isn't my first time dealing with UFC as an entity and some negotiations. It's not my first time at all. I mean, when was it? Before this contract I was in 4 years ago, they were one of the players in those negotiations. And so there is an ongoing relationship in terms of I've been on their radar for a long time, and it's not like, I had to introduce myself. I mean, they know the deal. I mean, every combat organization we spoke to during this period, my manager didn't have to explain who I was.
Exactly.
Called, boxing and MMA and kickboxing. They all went, "Oh yeah, Jimmy, great, yeah."
Right, and that is well deserved.
I don't have to do introductions. Yeah, exactly. I didn't have to do introductions anymore.
Does it bother you when people compare you to Joe?
It's funny. It doesn't. The only thing that gets me that I never seem to understand is, yeah, of course we look similar. We're bald white guys. But what's funny to me is do they think I when people say, that I'm trying to be Joe. How does one even do that? I get so confused about, like, do they think I stand in front of the TV and, you know, try to emulate Joe? I don't think we call fights very similar. I think we have a slightly different style of commentating fights. But that's what's so funny to me, is the people that assume I I automatically emulate the guy. No, that doesn't ever occur to me to sound like anybody but me. I wouldn't even know how to do that. That's the only part that I find kind of amusing. People go, man, you look like Joe. I was like, yeah, well, we didn't until he shaved his head.
Yeah.
Then he looked like me. It's funny. I told him, I was like, the moment you shave your head, because when I watch old UFCs, when I'm studying something or I watch an old UFC, when he has hair, we don't look that similar. When he was on news radio, nobody compared me to him or thought I looked like him. And as soon as he shaved his head, I was like, oh, my God, this is going to suck. And I knew immediately what was going to happen. And so we kind of laugh about that when we see each other. Like, thanks, dude. Thanks. Appreciate that. Because I shaved my head first, but you went and did it, and now everybody thinks I'm trying to copy you.
Two last quick things. Your first Bellator event, do you remember the number or the date, which one it was?
It was April 2009, I believe, and it was Roger Huerta's debut in Bellator. He took on a guy, Chad Hinton, if I remember correctly, and it was the start of the 145-pound tournament. Georgi Karahanian beat Bao Quach. Joe Warren beat Eric, I forget his name now, but it was the 145-pound tournament, and it was in Hollywood, Florida. I remember all those details. Yeah.
Okay. Just like it was yesterday.
Well, you know, it's my job to remember that kind of
stuff. Yeah. Not Hector Lombard. I'm trying to find it here.
Hector didn't fight that night.
Okay, but you're sure it was April of 2009?
April 2009.
Okay. Favorite moment? Doesn't have to be a fight. Is there one moment that sticks out being cage side, calling all those fights?
Man, there are a million moments that stand out. I mean, God, there are a million. I mean, there's a whole career worth of them.
Yeah, not one that sticks out.
Man, I mean, it's almost, you know, so many stick out that it's hard to even think of one. You know, but I remember we first transitioned to Spike. We did a show in Irvine, California, and it was Pitbull. He took on Pat Kern, and then we had Chandler defending his title and against Rick Hahn, and that was a big one. That was kind of a big coming out moment for everybody, and the energy in that building and the energy cage side, it was really incredible. But the best fight I ever called, for sure, has to be Eddie Alvarez Michael Chandler 1. I remember just being just stunned at A, how good that fight was, and B, how much Michael Chandler surprised everyone with his performance. And it was bloody. It was amazing. It was, you know, it's why you watch MMA. And I think cage side as a fight, that one stands out the most.
You don't need me to tell you this. You are phenomenal at your job. I'm happy to see that something is coming, down the pipeline here, and hopefully it's with the top organization. I'm really happy that we're able to speak on this particular week because I do believe we had a mutual friend, and I think he may have been even instrumental in getting you in Bellator. The late Adam Geller. Last week was the anniversary of his passing, and he always spoke every time I'm sitting talking MMA, he was the biggest MMA fan, always spoke very highly of you and was really proud of your success. And I'm sure, you know, whatever's next, he'll be proud of you as well. So, I thought it was fitting that we'd be talking this week, just a couple of days removed from the anniversary of his passing. Adam is the reason I'm in Bellator. That's amazing. Thank you, Jimmy. He told Bjorn about me and wouldn't shut up. So, and you know, Adam, when he talked about MMA, he didn't shut up. And he was the reason I am where I am. He's the reason I got the gig, and I'll always be grateful to him. Thank you, Jimmy. All the best to you, my man. Congrats on a great career thus far. Looking forward to what's next, and maybe early congratulations on a deal that is about to be finalized. I appreciate you doing this very much. Thank you. Thank you, man. Appreciate it, buddy. All right, there he is, Jimmy Smith. Some news, what we find out this week, sounds like the UFC, I know there's interest, would be a nice addition to their already all-star stable of color analysts.